You are now tuned into Convos with Cole.
Bow, bow. Bow, bow. I like that little bow, bow at the end. I like that intro. Anyways, by the way, guys, welcome to episode 3 of Convos with Cole. I am your host, Wendell Cole. Now, those of you that were listening to the first podcast and heard the word Cody being thrown around a lot, I also go by Cody. That is my nickname. So don't be alarmed. There wasn't like a third person in the room. And while we were recording, no, that is me. That is my nickname. But on to today's episode. I'm really excited to introduce today's guest for you all. His name is Charlie Houpert, and he is the co-founder of Charisma on Command. Now, Charisma on Command is an online course, and it basically teaches people how to be their most confident, charismatic self. It teaches people all the way specifics from body language to eye contact, presentation skills, how to make amazing first impressions, building self-esteem. And I was actually a student of this course. So I actually took the course and, I saw results like instantly. I saw things change in my life, and I saw other people started seeing that effect too. And, since then, a lot of really great things has happened. And he's been really, a really big influence on me. He actually introduced me to Tim Ferriss and with a long list of things had me end up starting this podcast, and he agreed to be on this podcast. And so he also has a YouTube channel. He's a co-founder of that as well. Has over 1.2 million subscribers. They push out weekly content. They do YouTube breakdowns from Ellen DeGeneres to Donald Trump, Kevin Hart, Bruce Lee, many, many more. They have weekly videos. Definitely go out and check it out and subscribe. And in today's episode, we cover many different topics, all the way from what charisma is, how to channel your inner charisma. We'll go into networking tips and basically how to be your most charismatic self. So without further ado, I hope you all enjoy this conversation I had with Charlie Houpert. Charlie, man, thank you so much for being on the show. I am everly fascinated in everything you have going on. I'm really excited to have you as a guest and that you took the time out to speak to me and kind of tell people what you had to offer and your story.
Of course. It's been a long time since we last talked. It's good to catch up.
Yeah, I think we actually spoke, it was about a year ago, and I was I was in a network marketing company. I still am, and I was like, I want to reach out to him because I started your course. I was a customer, and I was just thinking, what's something crazy I could do, or somebody that's really out there that I look up to. And I was like, I'm just gonna send him an email, see if he responds. He might not. I know he's a super busy guy, but you actually responded, and I was like, that's pretty cool. And you gave me some books and some tips of some things to look up that have really inspired me and helped change my life. So for that, I gotta say thank you.
I'm glad, man. I'm glad you took it to heart and actually went through. It's not every recommendation that gets followed through on. So I'm always pleased to hear that people are actually reading the things that I recommend.
Yeah, man. The 4-Hour Workweek, I think that was the first one, and the second one was the Millionaire Fastlane that you recommended. So definitely 2 great books. For whoever's listening, definitely check those out. I learned a lot from them, and I believe actually that's what kind of got me into this podcasting thing upon other things.
Cool. I'm glad to hear it, man. So
this brings me to the first question. So when you meet people that I guess aren't familiar with your background and they ask, the age-old question, oh, what do you do? What's your answer to that for the people that are listening that might not know exactly who you are?
Yeah, so if I'm out just having fun, I'll mess around with people. I'll tell them that I'm a stripper and whatnot. But I make something new up every time. But when I'm being serious and they'll inevitably follow up, I typically say that I'm a YouTuber because that is really the biggest and I think most interesting part of what we have going on right now. And then they'll ask, okay, what do you YouTube about? And I tell them that I have a channel called Charisma on Command, and basically what we do is we teach people to be their most charismatic and confident selves. And in order to do that, we tap into a lot of very popular pop culture figures to draw lessons from people like Donald Trump, Conor McGregor, and I just did a video on Wonder Woman. So we try to keep the information interesting as well as practical and easily applicable to people's lives.
Right, because I want to say the first video of yours I actually ever saw was a video you did on Bruce Lee.
Yeah.
And you were talking about like how he changes the framework of questions when people ask him that, and that's like one of the things that made him charismatic.
Mm-hmm.
And then at the end of that, you had your click here for the 4 first impressions, and then before I knew it, I was a customer. I was like, how the hell did I end up spending this money?
We got you.
Here, med student.
Love that we got you. I'm glad that the marketing funnel is working.
Dude, it worked to a T. Like I sat like a couple days later. I was like, how the hell did I end up spending this amount of money when I'm eating like dollar food? But it works, man. It definitely worked.
I'm glad to hear that we suckered you away from.
Well, I'm glad I did it too. What got you into it, man? What made you start? Like, tell me the story about how you even started Charisma on Command or Charisma University.
Sure. So I was extremely shy, and I think this is a business that arose out of the scratch your own itch thing. When I was in high school, I was voted most likely to break out of a shell in college, which basically meant that I was the shyest boy in my class of 505 students. And I didn't naturally break out of my shell. It was only when I was in my third year of college, really, after spending my first 2 years making only a handful of friends, that I went abroad and started stepping outside of myself, purposely being more outgoing, purposely trying to make conversations last longer, purposely asking girls that I had crushes on dates. And I had a lot of missteps, a lot of things that didn't work, a lot of stuff that I wouldn't necessarily take back, but at the time, looking back, it was not the right way to behave.
It was good learning lessons.
All part of the learning process, exactly. Right. And when I came back, and even for the subsequent years, as I focused on this aspect of myself, trying to be more outgoing and confident, people noticed. People in my life were like, what happened to you? People around me started asking me questions for how did I walk up to that girl and get a date, or how did I have the confidence to do that thing in terms of making that friend. And so there was a period of time where I was working at a consulting firm, and I wasn't pretty happy with my job. It was one of those things where I felt like I was showing up and kind of living a lie, in the sense that I was supposed to act enthusiastic about what I was doing. And right. I never lied while I was there, but I felt like just the fact that I was there attending these meetings, doing this work, and acting like this is what I wanted to spend my life doing was not true. And so that was a tough period for me, and it was, thankfully, my friend came across the 4-Hour Workweek, which got us thinking that we needed to get out. He was an investment banker, I was a consultant. Okay. And so we started our first business, which was a parkour business, and that one was, I can talk more about it, but long story short, it could have done well, but didn't, because we weren't passionate about parkour, which, for those people who don't know, is basically like the first scene in Casino Royale when he runs up construction site. Yeah. So
what got you into that? Were you doing it, or were you teaching people how to parkour? I didn't even know that. I had to.
Yeah. So, and I think the truth is, people don't know how a lot of people fail, and they just see, oh my gosh, it's working, and this was the fail part. So we had read the 4-Hour Workweek, and we were looking for niches that we might be interested in. And one of the things that we both wanted to do, because that movie Casino Royale was pretty fresh, was learn how to do that. Okay. And so we said, it would be interesting, because there's nothing out there right now, if we made a DVD that helped people learn how to do parkour. And to that effect, we put up some crappy little website. We learned how to accept money via PayPal, and learned how to get CDs, literal DVDs, shipped and sent to people's houses. Nice. And then hired a parkour guy for $200 a day to come out, hired a videographer, spent our own money, and made a quick little 30 to 40 minute DVD of the most basic moves. Okay. And then sold it. And it actually did really well, in the sense that, like, we didn't know how to market, and it was selling, which is incredible. Like, looking back on that business, it was in the right place at the right time, but we didn't have enough interest to grow it. When it came time to write a blog post on parkour, I just didn't care. I wasn't practicing it myself. It didn't wind up being something that I liked. And so all of the little work that is necessary to grow a business became a slog. And so that business turned from making a little bit of money to pretty neutral, and then we just stopped doing it because it was costing as much as it was making. So the lesson that we took from that was that if we were going to do it, it wasn't going to happen overnight. So we might as well do something that we were passionate about and interested in, that would keep us motivated through those inevitable periods of this isn't working. And that was where we came back to charisma, and it started with dating. So we were in New York City at the time. My best friend Ben and I, he was my best friend since high school. He started this business with me.
Nice.
And the first thing that we ever did was I went on Reddit, and I went to a New York City dating subreddit, and I posted, I said, there's going to be a class, there's 10 seats available, $15 a seat, and I'm giving away the first 5 for free. So I rented out a room, and by the end of it, when we got first 5 people signed up immediately, and then we actually got 5 people to pay $15 off of Reddit.
Nice.
So at the end of the day, after renting the room and subway fare, I made like $6, but we got 10 guys in a room and we talked about dating. And the response was great. They were super interested. They wanted to come out. They wanted to do this stuff. So we took a couple of them out. We went to a park, and they all went out and asked a girl for her number. Some of them got numbers, some of them didn't, but they were all stoked. And so that was how it started. And we continued to do those in-person classes, continued to write a little bit on Reddit, a little bit on our blog. And the way that the business evolved was the dating thing became stale. There was a big pickup artist influence in there. I didn't really like the fact that a lot of the people I was being associated with were not necessarily people that I found to be of like a high moral fiber. And I thought that even on occasion, the place that some of the clients were coming from was having already been exposed to that. They had preconceptions about how you're supposed to be with women that I just didn't agree with. So reflecting on things, we shifted, and we still do dating. We still teach dating in some ways, but really we wanted it to be open to a broader group of people. And that's when we shifted to confidence and charisma, because now women can be part of it. It doesn't just have to be single men, and it doesn't have to be people that have a certain potentially, not always, but potentially manipulative view of the dating scene.
Right.
And
so you're grabbing like a bigger audience.
Exactly. And it's just, you want to stay niche, of course. And this wasn't necessarily textbook business advice, but for us, we focused instead on our ideal customer. And at the time, our ideal customer was all of my friends. And what I realized is I had this awesome group of friends who would privately ask me for dating advice, but wouldn't associate with my business.
Right.
They thought it was weird, and they're like, I don't want to be part of that. So it took me a while, but I eventually sat down with them. I'm like, why won't you actually why do you ask me nonstop for advice, but you won't do my course, take a class, tell your friends about this? And they're like, dude, I just don't like the brand. I don't like what it stands for. I think you're a good dude, but this whole dating thing, it's not for me.
They don't want to be associated with it.
Exactly. So when we started focusing not on the product, which was, okay, we're going to teach dating, but on the person that we wanted to help, which were these cool 25-year-old ambitious guys that were getting a lot already in their life and just wanted to optimize, that's where we started to shift. And that's where we changed our name from Kick-Ass Academy to Charisma on Command. And that was where the business started to do well. The YouTube channel came along about a year after that shift. We were starting to make money. We were profitable. And the YouTube channel is really what switched it into, okay, this is a sustainable business. I can pay my bills as long as I'm careful, to, okay, this is a thing. This is now something that can employ multiple people, can actually become a company, can become something that really does drive a quality of life for me, for my family, and for the people who work for us, plus touch, at this point, millions and millions of people.
Yeah, YouTube had to take it to the next level for you guys. Did you guys see a huge increase once, YouTube started catching on? You started getting from a couple thousand to now a couple 100,000, now over a million?
Yeah, so the YouTube, when we first started taking off on YouTube, month to month, I saw our traffic and our business triple, which was incredible. And that was just initially. And so as we've continued to grow, it's continued to grow as well. And at every phase, it's just gotten better, and it's enabled us to do more different things. So we just hired an editor. We're hiring an animator. We're working now. Next week, I'm about to sit down with a talent manager to talk about doing potentially a book deal, potentially a speaking tour. So YouTube for us has been the platform that I feel like we spent about 3 years getting all of the ingredients right. And it took a long time. It took a lot of trial and error of doing things wrong. I told you 2 brief stories, but there was a lot of missteps. But YouTube was really the catalyst that took all those ingredients, which we worked hard to put in the right place, and then blew it up.
And you also have some books on Amazon that have been pretty successful, right?
So the Amazon books were part of that initial business that I mentioned was sustainable. And in terms of pretty successful, absolutely. Like, I would guess thousands of people have read them at this point, and it was certainly income that kept me from sleeping out or having a bed.
Sleeping outside,
I mean, not outside, but there was a period of time where I was Airbnb-ing my own bedroom and sleeping on the couch because I couldn't afford rent. And so it kept me from sleeping on the couch.
Classic story.
But yeah, those did well, but nothing in terms of business impact has sped up our growth like YouTube. There were some essential pieces that we had to get right first and that we couldn't have blown up without, but YouTube, like I said, that was the catalyst.
And now you're teaching other people how to grow their YouTube business as well, right? I believe I saw an email from you the other day talking about how you kind of you're at an event and you're kind of trying to speak to somebody and you're like, hey, I can help you guys out because I've learned a good amount.
Yeah, so this is not necessarily a business pursuit of ours, but it's something that I've found can help me give value to other people. And it's sometimes people that are in positions that are quite frankly more powerful than mine. So I was at a networking event and it was hosted by the founder of Quest Nutrition. So if you've ever had a Quest bar, the guy who founded that, his name is Tom. And the goal kind of going there was not necessarily to listen to the talks, but to connect with him because I know he lives in LA and he just started, or recently within the last several months or year, started a YouTube channel to make an impact. It's called Impact Theory. So I thought that if I could speak to him that he would be interested in learning about YouTube and it would just be a chance for us to connect. Nothing particularly in it for me other than the chance to connect with someone that had done some pretty awesome things. And I got to the event and of course, rookie mistake, there was a line to speak to him. Like, it was only 150, 200 people at this event, maybe.
That is a lot.
But the line was, 10 or 15 of them were just hovering around him waiting to talk. And as much as I felt like, okay, I have something valuable to say, it wouldn't have been appropriate for me to cut in. So wound up meandering, talking to a couple people. I had a friend or two there from in town because it was just down the street from where I live in Santa Monica. And one of my friends said, hey, I know you were looking to talk to Tom. Tom's wife is here if you want to speak with her. I said, absolutely.
Oh, back door.
Yeah.
Nice.
And even so, like, she's involved with the business. She plays a big part of it. She's in the videos. So I spoke with her, we joked around, said hi for a minute. My friend mentioned that we had a big YouTube channel and I've seen this happen before. I've heard this. This is just a quick tip. It's going to the person that other people are not going to that is kind of like the secret power lever. In many cases, the significant other is that. Tim Ferriss has a story about how he met Robert Scoble's wife, but long story short, she said, oh yeah, let me grab him. Walked up, said, can I have you for 2 minutes? He said, of course. And we spoke and we exchanged information. Now I have plans to go out, check out his studio and talk to him this Wednesday.
That is genius. Cause most people, just like you said, they're going to stand in line and wait just to talk to him. But you found a way to, you use a different angle. You use somebody that he valued very much. Because if your wife tells you to come, you're not going to be like, no. You're going to be like, okay, well, let me go talk and see who this guy is.
Yeah,
that was,
absolutely. And I mean, you did the same thing to a degree, which is I get tons and tons of podcast requests and do not take them, not because I'm trying to big time anybody, just because if I were to say yes to all of them indiscriminately, I would not get videos done. But the one thing that I do try to do is whenever somebody's gone through our course is I try to help them out. And whether they're asking for advice with a date or whatever, I try to say yes. So the fact that you reached out a year ago and were in the course and had followed through on the things that I said made this one of the few podcasts that I've said yes to in the last several months.
Oh man, now I feel good.
In fact, almost all of them have been either big business opportunities or students of Charisma University. So the point being, if you're someone that's trying to reach out to connect with other people, do not just write an email. Do not write them on their most crowded platform, whether that's Twitter or a YouTube comment. Find a way. It could be through an individual. It could be by becoming a customer of one of their more private programs. It could be by finding them on a more quiet social media platform. Go where the people aren't, and you'll be shocked by how much easier it is to get their attention. So that's my little tip.
So if I was trying to reach out to somebody of a really big caliber, say like Barack Obama or one of the celebrities, I guess, what would be your how could you do that, seeing as from the public, all we know is, hey, this is their Instagram. We just know their social media pages. We might not exactly know how to go through those other avenues to meet them.
Totally. So Barack's tough. I mean, presidents, that's a level that I am nowhere near, but I am starting to actually see that I'm closer to a lot of people that I might want to speak to. Now, I have the advantage of having 1 million YouTube subscribers, which I worked hard for, but gives an advantage. But I can just tell from my perspective, and you can apply it to yours. And so, for instance, I've wanted – first is, I think, to know who you want to talk to, because you'll be shocked at the people that can connect you to them. So, for instance, I know that I've wanted to speak to Tony Robbins. For years, I've known this, and I never really thought it was possible, so I never said anything about it. And it was within the last couple of months that I was like, you know what, like we got 1 million subscribers. Maybe he'd want to come. I know it's kind of a crap shot, but let's just start asking. Let's start telling people. And so when somebody would ask me what I was up to, not every time, but some of the time, I would mention Tony Robbins and how I would love to speak to him. And no joke, 2 people gave me connections, one with his son, one with his marketing team, another with it, like that are 1 degree of separation away. So I have a couple emails out to people that have his phone number. And so whether or not it happens, we'll see. I don't know. But the first step, I think, is to realize that it can happen if you start to tap into your network. And I've been surprised by the people that could connect me to him. It wasn't necessarily people in the internet marketing world that had huge followings themselves. One guy happened to go to an event of his, happened to be picked on in the event, connected with him separately, knows his marketing team because he was somebody that they followed up with after an event, and said, let me put you in touch with this woman on his marketing team. So I think the number one is getting a little bit of clarity on who that person is. And starting to just mention it casually to your network. And then again, if you want to be a little bit more directed about it, think of family members, think of sons, daughters, all that kind of things. This guy that I mentioned, one of the ways he was able to stay in touch is by keeping in contact with Tony's son. Tony Robbins gets tons and tons of inquiries.
Yeah, I'm
His
sure
son,
it's Tony Robbins.
not so many. So we'll see. I'm not the expert networker, but those are the things that I've started to see bear fruit in my own life, and I'll let you know if you see an Instagram photo with me with a big fat smile on my face next to Tony Robbins, you'll know.
Like we spoke about this a couple months ago, and now it happened.
Exactly.
I mean, I always think it's about you kind of have to know what you want in your head before you can even go out there. It's like you don't even know who knows who and who you can meet. Just basically, just like you just said, you're just out there just talking to random people, and now you're getting in contact with his son or marketing team. It's like it's one of the things I've learned is just you never know who knows who. And if you speak about things that you want, then eventually something will come.
Yep. No, I'm a big believer in that.
So rewinding back, you said that you left the country. You studied. You went abroad, and you put yourself out there and started talking to a lot of people, talking to girls, and trying to hone on your skills. Did you ever have what was the breaking point where you're like, hey, this can be something that I can actually help others with? Like, did you ever hit a point where you're like, this is it? Like, this is enough. I need to switch this around, and I need to make a change in my life.
Yeah, there were 2 big moments. One was when a friend that I'd known for a long time, and I think it always categorized me as all of my other friends did, as the shy kid, asked me for advice about a girl. He said very specifically, "You're good at this. What do I do?" And that was like, whoa. I didn't expect to get that. But the second one was when I was in Brazil, and I had just left my job. It was a combination of the two, and immediately took off. I took some time to just go to Brazil. I'd always wanted to go with a friend of mine, and I was sitting with him. We were in a city called Florianopolis, overlooking this lake at night, and I was about a week or 2 into my journey and was starting to worry, like, what am I going to do when I get back? Because I do not want to go work for another corporation that I'm not into.
Right, you're not passionate about.
Exactly, and so for him, he said, "Listen, man, I've known you for years. I watch you while you're here. The thing that you spend the most time doing and thinking about every single day is talking to people. You talk to the person who serves us lunch. You talk to everybody at the hostel, the owner of the hostel. You got us into this weird private party last night. You talked your way past the bouncer. It was just like, you know, there's this girl at the shoe store, and every day you go in and ask her on a date. Like, and she laughs and says, probably not, gringo. And it's like a fun little thing. So what he told me was that this is what you love. Why not find a way to do that? And for me, I think, and I've seen this, sometimes what we most want to do, we can hide from ourselves because it would be very scary to fail in a domain that we care about to that degree. And it can also be scary to put ourselves forward as someone who knows something. I don't think that I was an expert. Even today, am I an expert? It's just something that I pay attention to and care about and have thought a lot about. So there was a lot of internal resistance, but he brought it out of me that night. And after that, I couldn't deny it. It took me a little while to actually pull the trigger and act on it. But I very much knew at that point that he was right, and that was something I had to pursue.
So how did you get – I have to ask now. So how did you get past these security guards? Like, how did you get into the club that night? Or was it a bar or wherever you went? How did you do it?
Yeah, so one of the big things whenever I'm at a club, the acting as if you're supposed to be there, 80% of it is just walking in. Like, you'll be shocked. There's often these VIP lines, and everybody goes, which line should I go to? And as soon as you ask, they put you in the GA
it's like,
line.
Wow, you're
right?
target.
They put you in the GA line. And so the other night, there's a VIP area, and my friend was literally texting me. He says, how do I get into the VIP area? And I wasn't there. I just said, walk in like you're a VIP and smile at the bouncer while you do. And so he's like, dude, somebody right in front of me walked in nervous looking. The guy said no. I walked up, big grin on my face, said, what's up, man? He said nothing.
Smooth.
And so like there's this one level of just walk in, which is surprisingly simple. And the other is if you do get stopped, the one thing that I'll talk to, slow it down. A lot of people are very jumpy because they feel like they're doing something wrong and they don't belong there. It's like, you know, he says, stop, you can't go in. Again, act as if you own the place. Say, what's up, man? How's your night going? Like, you just assume that you're getting in. You're not even asking about getting in. And when he's like, right. Who are you here with or what are you doing? You'd be like, I'm here for the party, right? He says, yep. Well, you know, you can't come in. My last fallback always, and this has worked, is have you ever made an exception? And I like to get in before I get here, but if I'm completely out and the guy has just stuffed me, have you ever made an exception is something that has worked in the past. So
for those listening, that's 3 tidbits. If you go into the club tonight, try those out. You might be in VIP. You never know what happens.
VIP. Yeah.
And you know, one of the core things, or one of the things that I actually took from your course that I saw like immediately is you were saying to try not to treat people like positions, but to treat them like actual humans. You know,
yeah.
I think you were talking about the guy at Chipotle. Everybody just walks up and they're like, "Just give me the burrito, steak, black beans, rice." But when I took your advice when you're like, "Hey, just treat them like a person." Like, "Hey, dude, how's your shift? You get off soon?" Like, you know, just making small talk. And many times they'll like double up or give me some extra steak because like, oh, okay, like they're like caught off guard when you speak to them and you're not the same as everybody else. Absolutely. And it's shocking how that little bit of just, I don't even want to call it courtesy because it just is interest in another human being. One makes it so much more fun for you, but yeah, you're going to get more steak. You can get more whatever you want. Yeah. I was in a little bit of a less than fantastic mood the other day. I was just quiet and I walked in to a place that serves smoothies, and one of the guys did that to me from behind the counter. Said, "Hey man, how's your day going? What's going on? What you up to?" And when it came time to like give a tip, I gave him a bigger tip. And I noticed he was unthinking. It was just like, this guy gets an extra buck. You know what I mean? Yeah, some simple things.
Yeah, it's those little things that are legitimately worth money, and it's shocking that more people don't do it. Or even saying somebody's name. I think that's another. Like, dude, I've taken so many tips from your course, like applied in my real life, and it's crazy just how the instant reaction that you just see, or even just like smiling when you first meet people, like making a killer impression. It's literally, it's mind blowing the effect of like how quickly you can see this happen. Yeah, impressions, and that's the crazy thing is they occur quickly. So it's not this amazing big production that you have to do. It's often just one or two little things that pushes you over the edge from every other person that they've met to somebody that they like and maybe want to help and will remember.
Right. So really quick, let's go into charisma. Like, what does the actual word charisma mean to you?
So to me, when I think of it as leadership. And it's not just the guy who runs the company. It's not the guy who's the captain of the football team who calls the shots. It's the person who, like you said, decides that this conversation is going to go in a human direction. So it's the person who reveals something about themselves that's maybe a little bit vulnerable, not to get pity from other people, but because it's appropriate to the context and they want to teach a lesson or share a story. It's the person who, in a very serious context, while everybody's waiting, for instance, to be interviewed in this quiet little waiting room, cracks a joke, lightens the mood. So when I think of it, it's little moments of leadership. And we love people who take us out of autopilot. That's really what it is. So anytime someone gets in there and turns you from your just, hey, what's up, steak, burrito, this, that, the other thing, and they snap you out of it, they do something that makes you laugh, that makes you like them, and that makes them come across as charismatic.
So to you, who is the most charismatic person to you? Because you've done many video breakdowns. Who are I'll give you your top two.
So when I think of top two might be tricky. I think Tony Robbins is absolutely, for me, when I watch him, he's next level. In terms of a leader, he is capable, and I've seen it in his courses, in his Netflix documentary. He is capable of speaking to someone for 10, 15, 20 minutes and having a lasting change on the rest of their life. Yeah. And it's absolutely mind-boggling. There's a ton that goes into it. And then the second person that I would say is a very different style, but is just I personally, when I watch him, am completely absorbed, is Russell Brand. And he is the reason that I say him is because I watch a ton of interviews with people. And what you realize is that even I fall into this category. People have beats that they always hit, stories they always tell, ways they always tell them. And I'm not exaggerating when I have not heard Russell Brand repeat himself. He is so brilliantly spontaneous. He is the most exceptional improvisational speaker I have ever listened to. Tony Robbins has a shtick. He's authentic. He connects, but he knows what beats make sense to someone. And Russell riffs every time, and it's so eloquent and smooth. I'm almost always in awe when I listen to him. So those would be my top two.
Have you ever been to one of Tony Robbins' live events? Like the energy in there is crazy. Have you ever been able to witness one? Yes, I went to his Unleash the Power Within. I'm hoping to go to Date with Destiny potentially at the end of this year. Oh, dude, perfect. I'm stoked. So how can the average everyday person increase their charisma? To the person listening to this, what are just a couple things that they can do that can just instantly kind of make them more charismatic, or quick things that they can use in their arsenal on everyday things? I think you gave some great ones, which is those little ones, remembering people's names. I think the mindset of treating people not as a function of their position. So this isn't a doorman who's blocking me. It's a person who I can ask how their night is going, right? This isn't a guy this isn't a machine who serves me this Chipotle. This is a person who has been here for a couple hours and maybe has plans after work that I can find out about. Same thing, Uber drivers, apply that across the board. I think that's probably the number one thing. And what it all will eventually tie back to is an energy and an enthusiasm and a positivity and an approach to life. This is a little bit high level, but I do think it's the most effective thing, given that we're in a podcast and I can't give everything, is to focus on the energy that you bring to an interaction. So a very simple way to do this, and we talk about this in the First Impressions course, is when somebody asks you how you're doing, you can be good, you can be fine, but I encourage you to find a way to be better than that, to be awesome, to be fantastic, to be stellar. Whatever you do
to set that energy level high, I think you'll find that it breaks people out of a pattern, and they'll often go, "Oh wow, like why such a good day?"
Yeah, like, what's wrong with you?
yeah, right. and secondly, it makes you actually have a better day when you're consistently reaffirming that. I'm not saying that you need to fake this consistently, but what I am saying is that sometimes you need to kick yourself before you start to feel that motivation. But once you get rolling, you really will start to feel stellar, fantastic, phenomenal, whatever it is, as you get in a habit of creating that as a go-to emotion rather than, "Oh, good, man, how are you?" which is just flat and boring and makes your life no fun.
That's so true. I know I've had like shitty days before, and somebody will ask me how I'm doing, but I'm good. Like, I feel like you could be going through anything and people will still just say I'm good because it's the polite thing to do. Like, again, just what you just say, you're just treating them as a position rather than like as an actual person and telling people how you actually feel.
And God, it's almost better to be like, "Man, I'm having a rough day," than to be good all the time, because good is boring. It's flat. There's no room for motion there. And being something else, if you can be better, be better. But if you have to be worse, it's better than just constantly being fine or good.
So you've done like a lot of video breakdowns from, various topics, Conor McGregor, Bruce Lee, I think Will Smith, Kevin Hart. How did you learn to pick up on these different things? Or how did you learn how to do these breakdowns? Like, how did you learn, like, hey, okay, he's doing a story here. This is like, his storytelling is awesome. And then you're like picking out the different things that makes storytelling awesomer, or when you did a breakdown of Will Smith, like coming into the room and how he like acknowledged everybody. How do you do these breakdowns?
Yeah, so this for me started because I was doing this in my life. I was a shy kid. I was quiet. I was not getting in there. And I noticed that I could sometimes say a joke, no one would laugh, and then a friend of mine who was cooler or whatever would repeat my same joke louder, and everyone would laugh. And I was going, "What the heck is happening?"
Like, I know you guys just heard me. Like,
clearly, this isn't about the words on a script, right? There is some delivery that is important here. And so, for years prior to ever making an official breakdown, I would be at dinner or out with friends, and I would just pause, kind of step back on the situation, and try to see what was going on. Like, how did I know on a gut instinct level that this one person was just going to dominate conversation and tell a story that people were going to love? And then on the other hand, when somebody else started to speak, what were they doing that made them just get completely cut off? And so a lot of these things were things that I started to see in my own life first, and then it was just applying that same process of watching these clips and being aware of the moments where my feelings about that person changed. So it is especially easy for me to do people that I've never seen before because I don't have an opinion of them, and I can be hyper aware of the moment where I go, "I like this person," or "I don't like this person. Oh my God, that story's awesome." And I just pause and I go, "What's happening right now? What did they do physically to create that emotion in me?"
And so have you had a time where, well, obviously you said you've done a lot of trial and error, a lot of failures. Can you tell us one of the, not necessarily failures, but one of the times where you try to be charismatic, might have been in your earlier days, where it might not have worked out so great? Because, you always see the good in people, but not the good in people, but you always see like the end result, but you never really see what people go through to get there. Do you have a story of a time where you weren't like functioning at the best when you're trying to be like charismatic? Totally.
And I think there's almost always, I try to avoid this in our course, but when you're learning by yourself, there's almost always a dip. You go backwards for a period of time. And one of the things I remember, I was trying to make eye contact, and I got it in my head that big wide eyes were really helpful. So for weeks I was just staring at people with bug eyes until a buddy was like, "Dude, you're freaking me out. Cut that out." There was another time at the beginning where I had just read The Game, and this is what I kind of mean about some of the stuff.
By Neil Strauss?
Yes. Some of the stuff that isn't always helpful. Book changed my life. Totally put me on the path of personal development. But some of the specific advice in there, one of the things that was big was if a girl asked you, for instance, to hold a drink, not to be a doormat, not to just say, oh, sure, no problem. It was to give her a little bit of sass back and say, okay, but it's going to be lighter when you get back because I'm going to drink some. And so I was abroad. I was with this group, and whenever people would ask me, not whenever, but oftentimes when these women would ask me to do favors that were part of this group, I would do it, but I'd give them sass. And sometime towards the middle of the end of the semester, one girl asked me to do something for her. I gave her a little bit of and she just flipped. She went off on me and told me, you are such a dick. You are a complete, like, can't you just do someone? I mean, went to town.
Oh, dude.
And it was perhaps excessive, but I'm glad that it happened because it did make me pause and think, what am I doing? Like, is this I'm either misinterpreting this or this is not good advice, but this is not what I should be doing.
Right.
And that, I think there's been, particularly at the beginning, was where you swing really hard to the one side. You're like, okay, no more Mr. Nice Guy. And then you kind of are a jerk. And so it's about finding that line for me. And it took a lot of adjustment to be not aggressive, not sassy or jerky, but assertive and comfortable with myself, to not have to overreact to be the alpha male, but just to be comfortable with assertiveness, I think.
Now, did she flip out on you in front of everybody, or was it like you're kind of a one-on-one type of thing?
It was a small group. We were okay. I remember correctly, we were at a museum, so it felt especially loud.
Oh, that's hilarious. That is absolutely hilarious. Now, can you tell the story of how you were speaking at New York City? You were in one of the personal development meetups, because this is when I was kind of reading your story before I actually got suckered into the Charisma on Command, and you were talking about how that you just turned around, you just saw that you were this leading speaker at a personal development place in New York City. Can you tell me about how that happened?
So the personal development thing came about because I posted some of the stuff on the internet of our blogs very early, right when I got back from Brazil, I mentioned, and I started sharing things on Reddit. That got me in touch with a guy in New York City who was he was a young guy, but he was big into the meetup scene, and he was like a 30 under 30 tech guy. He was a darling, and he's become a friend. We actually lived together in Brazil later, but at the time I didn't know him. He was like the darling of the tech industry. And we met up, and he went out with us, and there was, at first it was like, cool, what's up? Nice to meet you. Interesting what you're doing, but not a ton there. And then we went out to a club, and he was typically, quiet, reserved, whatever, and I just ran through the place. Like, made a million friends, talked to a bunch of girls, got some phone numbers. I don't even remember the night specifically, but I do remember that afterwards he was like, dude, like, this is awesome. We need to hang out more. And it was through my friendship with him that he decided to start this meetup and loop me in on it. And I became one of the lead speakers for this meetup. I think it's still going in New York City. I'll actually have to check. But that was 5 years ago, so I'll have to see what it's become now.
It's probably like really big now, where it definitely has probably grown if it's still going on, and it's been 5 years.
Yeah, I mean, I hope so. I know that there's definitely been offshoots. If the original's still going, I'm not totally sure, but I think again, what I've seen is if there's an area of your life that people are generally interested in. I mentioned YouTube. I have 1 million subscribers. When people are interested in YouTube, I can help them. At that time in my life, I was a 24-year-old guy. Talking to girls in clubs and bars is something that other 24-year-old guys care about. So it was an area that I was able to help this other guy who was in many ways so far ahead of me, business-wise far ahead of me, network-wise far ahead of me. He was doing more than I was, and wasn't originally necessarily interested in connecting with me, but because I was able to help him, teach him in one area, he did the same for me in the business world.
Just a couple more quick questions. So how can the average person be more confident? Because, you were this man, you come in, you're on fire, talking to everybody, getting everybody's number. You have to have like an aspect of confidence in order to be able to do that. Or people are attracted to confidence. People want to be around people that are more confident or seem like they have it going on. So how can the average person be more confident?
Yeah, lots of stuff. So I mentioned the energy piece first. It's a state thing. Tony Robbins talks about it briefly. You want to try as much as you can to snap yourself out of that boring low-level state. So what I mentioned earlier and what you mentioned about treating people as people prior to position will do a lot to get you on a roll. On a deeper level, there's all these little tips and tricks, but that's one of the first little tips and tricks. On a middle, deeper level would be to start making shifts in your life and move away from the things that decrease your self-esteem. So I think all of us have some things in our life that we know we shouldn't do. We know that it's not who we want to be, but we do it. And we can lie to ourselves about it. We can lie to other people about it and say, oh, no, like I really do love this person, even though I'm just afraid of not being with them in a relationship. Or this job really is what I want to be doing, even though I'm just afraid of striking out on my own. But when you start to make decisions that reinforce your self-esteem. Like for me, one of the big ones, it was tough to be confident while I had my consulting job, because every day I woke up and I went to a job that I didn't like, and I was basically saying, I don't have faith in you, Charlie. I don't have faith in you to be successful outside of this, so you have to do something that you're not really excited about. I don't have faith in you to start a business. I don't have faith in you to get another job. I don't have faith in you to find your own way. And so when we have those things in our life, whether it's the diet, we're not eating the way that we ought to be. We're not pushing ourselves to start a business. We're not asking the person out. This is a big one. Whether or not it goes well, you'll be shocked by the confidence boost that you can get when you just go ask that person out that you've been thinking of, because you're going, okay, I now know that I am someone that I respect enough to at least try. And so when you start to treat yourself as a person who you respect, your self-esteem rises and it increases your confidence across the board. And then, and then there's, I would say, the deepest level, which is something that I'm going into now. And it sounds hippy dippy, but I've seen big changes, is that, kind of addressing subconscious fears. And the long story short on this, I will eventually have more videos in a course because it's tough to get into, but the long story short is that when we're kids, things happen in our lives that we associate as trauma. It doesn't have to be a big deal. It can be walking into kindergarten and some kids telling us not to sit with them. It doesn't have to be a big deal. But it creates in our mind this fear that often as young people we don't want to address, so we pretend that it doesn't bother us. So I would say almost every individual has things that they are scared of that they deny, that they say is not the case. And it's very tough to dig these up. It takes work, and there's practices which we can talk about if we have more time, perhaps in another one of these. But digging up these subconscious fears, facing them, is incredible for just a underlying sense of no matter what happens, I'm going to be okay. And personally, where that has been big for me is in relationships, because one of the areas where I had my confidence rocked was after a breakup, and I noticed that I was just not myself after this. Like I lost a person. I lost a person that for me was the place that I went to receive love and to feel peace of mind, and losing that disrupted me in a lot of different areas. The solution was not
how you feel.
Exactly, right? And the solution is not what I typically do, which is, okay, I'm just going to go find another person to support me, right? To be that. The support, the answer was to look at, why is this – obviously I care and miss this person, but what is so terrifying about being alone? What grips me about this fear of not having someone I love? And that for me involved quite a bit of reflection and exploration of just things from when you're little, like, right, when mom and dad leave and you don't want them to. It's crazy, but that stuff, if not addressed, can come out and be projected onto future relationships in a way that is dysfunctional and stops you from being as joyous and confident as you could be otherwise.
Wow. Yeah. I mean, I've definitely felt a lot of those same things that you've felt happen to you before. I can definitely relate with you on that last tip, especially with it affecting your relationships and that like longing for like, man, I'm alone. Here's this void. Let me just try to go fill with like another girl or, whatever it may be. But it's like, it's still not taking care of the underlying issue. You're just kind of like replacing something, like almost procrastinating.
Yeah.
In a sense.
Yeah, it's filling an internal space with an external something, and it's a good short-term solution. And I did it for a long time. I think everybody's journey at some point involves they feel something isn't right in their life, and they want to change the world around them to make it right. And I support that. That's what we just talked about. That's becoming a confident person. That's building a business. That's getting in shape. But what I will say is that having spent my 20s, and I'm just about to turn 30. Getting the outside world to be exactly like I want it to be, once you do that, you realize there's still some inside stuff that needs to be addressed. There's still something that you have to fix, or at least address, maybe fix isn't the word, that is this desire to always be more, to do more, because at some level you think that you have to constantly grow to be enough, or you can't be alone. And addressing those like deep-rooted, totally human, across-the-board concerns and fears is something that I think just it's a level of confidence that for me is incredible.
Yeah, it's like a third degree ultra confident, like
third degree ultra confident black belt up in here, right?
Exactly, just a sensei. You just become a guru once you've hit that stage.
Let's sit on a mountain and meditate.
I know, right? So just a couple more questions. These are just some like rapid fire, just some quicker questions.
Sure.
Just wrap it up. What do the first 60 minutes of your day look like? Like, do you have any morning or daily rituals?
Yeah, so I've recently moved to Santa Monica, and I'm thankful to be restructuring that. So I wake up. Yeah, I wake up and I do a shake with coconut oil, just because I do fats and proteins in the morning. I go outside, and one of the things that I love the most is for 5-10 minutes I will jump rope. And it's not necessarily to like get a sweat on and to burn fat and build muscle. It's just to get myself moving early in the morning while I listen to music I love. Sure. And so that primes me very, very quickly to be in a good mood. I come back in from outside, and I'll do another shake or another quick thing. And typically at that point, I will listen to Tony Robbins. One of the first things that I do in the morning, I've been going through, I'm often going through a program of his or re-going through a program of his. And that's the next 45 minutes of my day. So I try to start it off with a little bit of food, a little bit of movement and exercise, and then priming. I think like just getting myself in that mode of positivity, excitement, high energy is the best thing. And the days where I don't do that, which are frequent, don't always get off to the strongest start, and it can take me a while to get going.
Nice. So you're kind of just getting ready just to kill the day, like in the morning.
Yeah, and you know what? I'll even say that one of the things is it's for me, I'm taking some of the pressure off to achieve. I kind of alluded to this in what we were just talking about, but for me, the last couple months, particularly since the end of this relationship, has been learning how to do less, to not constantly have to do more, be more, achieve more. And I know that's very counter to the thrust of the personal development community, but learning to like sit and chill and just do nothing makes me, one, feel a greater sense of peace, and then two, when I am working, I'm not as frantic and I wind up being more effective. So that for me has been really helpful.
It's almost like taking time out of the day just to smell the flowers, for example.
Yeah, man, taking walks. I've been doing a lot of that lately.
What books have you recommended others to read the most?
So I definitely gave you a couple of them.
You did.
So number one has got to be 4 Hour Work Week. That one is fantastic. And we talked a little bit about self-esteem. 6 Pillars of Self-Esteem, really, really good for that. Okay. For what we were just talking about, which is that third degree deep confidence level that is black belt. Yeah, black belt stuff. That is not, I don't think it's the first thing you should do. I really do think you should start by treating people like treating people like people and not positions.
Opposite.
Treat people like objects. Go through that stuff, but once you feel like you've handled that level, there's a book called Letting Go, which I can't say I agree with every single passage and every word, but the high level thrust of the concept of letting go has been really, really great. And I'm trying to think if there's any other specific ones. There's tons of others in every realm, but I don't want to clutter this list, so I'll leave it at those three.
Okay, awesome. And is there a quote that you live your life by?
I try to. The one that I have tattooed on me is "The secret of freedom is courage." And I got that right before I went to Brazil when I was scared to quit my job. And the point for me of getting it is that there's always these times in my life where I feel like I can't do things, or I'm stuck, or I'm stressed. And the way out is always like I usually feel like something has to change, but really what has to change is I just have to be more courageous. And so for me in that moment of my life, that meant quitting my job. And other times where it feels like I can't do this, I can't do that, it's just I just have to do the courageous thing that I'm blinding myself to. So that's something that I try to keep in mind.
It's a lot of nuggets here, man. I hope people are listening and taking notes on these nuggets that are getting thrown out. And last question. So if you got $50 million today and you couldn't spend any of it on yourself, what would you spend it on?
I think that if I had $50 million today, quite frankly, I'd probably just give a lot of it to appropriate charities. I think I'd take some of it and invest in a team for Charisma on Command. But right now we're not particularly cash strapped. That's not the limiter on our growth. It's me learning how to be an effective leader. But I would probably just donate it to the charities that I thought that I could do the best, which is quite frankly, I mean, my goal is to make that $50 million and spend it just like that because I have everything that I need at this point.
Perfect, dude. Well, Charlie, I want to say thank you for definitely coming on the show and dropping a whole bunch of these nuggets. Again, I hope people were taking notes, a lot of things that people can use. If you want to let people know where they can reach you at, YouTube channels, websites, of course, I'm going to put a link in the description of the podcast as well on the site when I post it. But if you want to let people know where they can reach you at, how can they learn more about you?
Yeah, so I would say the number one way, if you do want to join our email list, you can go to charismaoncommand.com. You can click the blue button, drop your email, and you'll get the emails that Wendell gets and learn about all these things that we're doing. But where all of our new content is on our YouTube channel. And just Google Charisma on Command. Check out the YouTube channel, subscribe to that. I think that's probably the number one way to see the newest content we have. And if you like it, like Wendell, join our online course, Charisma University, which is find on our website.
Awesome, man. Definitely, again, I want to say thanks for taking the time out of your day. Come on, and I mean, next year, I already know soon you're gonna reach 2 million YouTube subscribers. I'm gonna see that picture with you and Tony Robbins in a couple months. I'm gonna be like, we spoke about this. Nice.
I hope so, man. I'll tag you in the photo.
Hello, everybody, and thank you for listening to episode 3 of Convos with Cole. I hope you enjoyed listening to Charlie Houpert. It was a pleasure to interview him, and I learned a lot, and I hope you all did too. So don't forget to subscribe to Convos with Cole. Go and leave a review. You know, write something on there so I can see, and then we'll all be happy. So for show notes, go to www.convoswithcole.com and click on this episode. Everything will be there. And also for a freebie containing Charlie's tips on how to be more confident, you can go to this episode, and at the bottom of the page, you can download the free PDF. I hope you all enjoyed it, and I will see you in the next episode.